Hello everyone, Burb here. Today let's do a way tuned up guide to Mejiro Palmer. This is a series where I go and I try to compile as much as possible about a character and put it all into a singular video. Now this is a day late because they decided to release her on a Champions Meeting registration day, so apologies for that, but hey, or at least we're getting around to her. I'm going to talk about the banner real quick and then we'll get right into the character herself. Now, if Mejiro Palmer is your Oshi, feel free to pull for her. She is at the very least a sacrificial runaway throughout Track Blazer and beyond. But if you want to run her as an ace, you can run her as a front runner, although it is very lobby dependent and also quite risky. Her ultimate is very, very hit or miss, and we'll talk about that in the specific situations where it would work or not in a second. But let's get right into the character. Her aptitudes: she is a long medium horse with mile F, which is a little difficult in Track Blazer because you generally want to get mile B or at least mile C. Now, she has aptitudes for strategies like pace and late surger. However, I don't see any reason to run her outside of the front runner position given her ultimate that we'll talk about as well. She is a runaway character. You will run a secret event in any scenario except for Track Blazer in order to get it. So right now, she becomes a sacrificial runaway or a front runner ace at the moment. Now her stat bonuses are 10% speed, 10% stamina, and 10% guts, which is a little bit awkward at the moment because the two Track Blazer builds are currently guts maxing or speed power wit, and you really want to press the stamina button and the speed button, so it's a little awkward, but I guess you can run like a 3 wit, 2 speed, 1 stamina deck in the mediums and longs to get enough stamina for it. This character, you're going to need a lot of power sparks, mainly because even in the guts maxing build, you don't really have access to Mejiro Palmer, which has that power bonus as well. So you're going to want to run other power bonus cards and run power sparks on this character, usually whatever builds you're running throughout the course of the next couple scenarios. Now, keep pushing ahead. Her ultimate states, if positioned towards the front from the start of the race until the second half of the race, good vibes recover endurance and moderately increase velocity steadily. So she gets good vibes if she is in the front of the pack for the first half of the race. There are only two conditions, but the second condition is very specific. The first one is saying distance rate greater than or equal to 50%. As we'll see, this might as well say distance rate equals 50% because order rate in 20 continue equals 1 is basically a hit or miss or an on or off condition that has a timing of 5 seconds to 50% of the race. So in the area between 5 seconds after the race starts to 50% of the race, you need to be in first or second place. Order rate in 20 continue time, it's there in the top left, is a very wordy way of saying that you either need to be in second or first place for the entirety of the time. Think things like Biwa Christmas, where if you're in third place at any point, if you so much as sniff it, you are basically gone and your ultimate will not proc, okay? So 20% order rate in Champions Meeting as well as in League of Heroes eventually will both be second place. Now, if you run an 18-person race, it technically goes to third place, which makes it a little easier. But this was what really makes her a runaway, because if you're running front runners and other people are running front runners, usually there is some interplay between the front runners where they go and they fight for the first position, okay? So what's going to happen is that basically if you satisfied this condition, her ultimate will proc at the 50% mark. If you didn't satisfy this condition, her ultimate will simply not proc, okay? So she's meant to be a runaway, like I said. What is good vibes? The good vibes that she receives for proccing her ultimate? Well, good vibes is a 0.055 stamina recovery, as well as a 0.25 target speed increase for 6 seconds. So yes, good vibes is basically gold shipped with a gold recovery strapped to it on a front runner, which is incredible. This is, if you ignore the conditions, this is the best ultimate in the game in terms of pure output. You get a full gold recovery stamina and you get gold chip ult, which is one of the best ultimates in the game. Like I said though, this is a very, very difficult condition that basically forces you into the runaway position or as a very, very good front runner itself, okay? Her inherit is also shredded. They removed the target speed to 0.05 and the stamina recovery is only a white recovery, and you don't want to put your white recoveries on things that are probably not going to proc because her condition is so difficult. Outside of Track Blazer, her career is quite flexible in that you have at least 9,000 fans by early June, so before summer. Usually what this means is you're running something like the Hopeful Stakes, or you're running a G2 plus something like the Satsuki Show at the very minimum, okay? Other than that, you have to get third place in the Tenno Show Spring, but you do remember two things. One, she has a gold recovery in her ultimate, which will definitely help for that. And two, she's a runaway by heart, so you will be basically building some stamina on her because you need stamina as a runaway on practically all the tracks you run them anyways. So this third place Tenno Show Spring is a little bit more daunting than it actually is. Now, to get runaway, you can't be in Track Blazer because there's no careers in Track Blazer. There's no events, like secret events in Track Blazer. All you have to do is you add the Arima Keenan Classic to it. So she has the Tazaraka Keenan in her career, and she has the Arima Keenan in her career with the first place requirements. So you got to win the Taka, you got to win the Arima Keenan, and then you got to add and win the Arima Keenan Classic, okay? That's how you get runaway, and you get 10 speed and 10 guts as a little bit of bonus. Her regular event skills, she is a charming character, which helps a lot. Charming's very good if it decides to proc early, and these ones tend to proc early a lot. So if you do get charming from the random hit from Breakaway Bakushin Turbo Boost, you can choose Stamina or Wits, but charming is going to help you in the early game. Now, for Palmer, we'll give you Front Runner Savvy, which is just a good green, and you're a front runner, so it's probably the best green you can get because it helps with your round work triggers. And then you can just get sympathy from one of her character events. So you get unsolicited sympathy that you probably will almost never take. So, hey, it's there. Her skills, we talked about her event skills, but her innate skills are front runner straights, early lead, and long shot. Long shot is an unreliable green, but generally it's usually decent to take because it's usually fairly cheap, and it's also, if you're fighting against good players, you're usually able to get in the fourth or worse a lot of times. So it does happen more than you think. Long shot is fine. I would probably not pay 90 for it, but if you get a good amount of hints, go right ahead. Early lead is taking the lead white, so if you do not get taking the lead, you can at least cope with early lead plus getting your other early game excels, and front runner straights is good when you're running a front runner. Her golds are purely based around pretty much runaway as well, because you get Vanguard Spirit on the longs. Now, Vanguard Spirit is not normally a very good skill on frontrunners because it is very difficult to get ahead by more than one length on a frontrunner to other frontrunners, and you don't want to be solo front running at the moment. Now, Vanguard Spirit picks a random point. That's the biggest thing. So it's whether or not you're ever in dash and dip behind one. So if you're ahead by one length or more, the only time where that's going to happen consistently over the course of the entire mid-race is in the runaway position, right? Because you're hopefully the only runaway at this point. Still, is it a good skill to pick up? It is debatable, but probably you are picking this up if you are building her as an ace to try to get as much of a mid-race advantage as possible. See You Later is her unique addition to the game. It is gold playtimes over, and it may be one of the best mid-race skills in the game because it is a 3-second 0.35 skill, and it has a cooldown of 30 seconds, which means on the longer tracks, it can decide to double proc. It is also playtimes over, which means it will proc almost instantly as long as there is pretty much anyone else in the frontrunner position, right? Because frontrunners they will be close enough to proc PTO before you end up moving forward, okay? So very good gold skill in See You Later. Vanguard Spirit is a little bit iffy, but you probably take it when you are running her Runaway. CM Viability. This section is going to be a little different because her ultimate works on all tracks technically. Now the thing is that you kind of have to run her runaway or as a very gambly front runner. Now when I say gambly, you probably run double front runner and you hope no one else builds a front runner. The thing that you're gonna find out is that if one like V Bourbon is on another team, Cacao is going to, at least at the time Cacao procs, is going to push you into second place. And if there's any other front runner, you're going to be pushed into third even for that half second, and that's where your trouble is going to be. Your ultimate is going to be dead at that point. Now, the other thing that you're going to have trouble with, like for example, if you run in the next CM, which is the Tokyo 1600 meters, that Runaway has the lowest late race speed coefficient in the game, which means these tracks that have long late race spurts, usually the end closers and the late surgers, are going to be passing you. Now you can still run her as a sacrificial runaway, but still it's a very tough considering she is a long track runner by design for these long tracks that have very long spurts, right? So really where she is in an ace as we finally get along into Grand Live and up is in the turf track mediums that are shorter. So there's a 2,000 meter dirt that you can force her in technically, but really CM19 is sort of a sweet spot where you can kind of run her as an ace because it's not the biggest final spurt in the world. And you can technically run her here. But again, running her as an ace is just a little bit tough in Champions meetings. But I'm sure the people who really, really enjoy her will either run her as that gambling front runner, which will work on shorter tracks and medium tracks. And then as the runaway, when you don't have to worry about the stamina too much in these shorter, medium tracks, you're going to find you only need to overstam about, like 200 because of her innate gold recovery that is basically free. So CM19, it's a while away before she is what I would say a viable ace. But again, she's a sacrificial runaway at the very least, and you can always gamble her as a front runner. Her affinity is with my auto top gun. This horse keeps popping up. She has 35 affinity with my auto top gun. She also has very good affinity, 35, 33, and 30 respectively with Kittison Black and Gold Ship. Again, her affinities are actually pretty incredible. You have stuff like Saiyan Sky, Mejiro McQueen, your standard frontrunner inherits, and her list of 25 pluses is 14, which is a lot of horses and higher than most of the horses in the game. So she has quite good affinity with a decent amount of the roster and a lot of good frontrunner options. Again, she is a medium long track horse, which means that if you care about mediums or longs, it's basically a 50-50 on whether or not you get a distance aptitude or you get a surface style aptitude. So you really have 3 decent hits, and then probably the one that you're looking for, and then just front runner would be the one that would be a little bit iffy. So you can use her as a basically a white skill affinity engine. You probably will not be taking the ult on anybody because the ult is not that great in terms of inherit. So in conclusion, she's a sacrificial runaway that you can run a gambling frontrunner. If you're running a gambling frontrunner, you need as much mid-race as possible because you need to basically counter Operation Cacao on V-Bourbon. You need to have stuff like Escape Artist, stuff that has the chance of proccing early so that you can go and try to get an advantage to at least sustain you until the 50% mark. After that, you basically have a 6-second 0.25, which is going to probably win you first place if it ever decides to proc in the front runner position. In the runaway position, you're going and you're waiting for tracks that are 2,000 meters to 2,200 meters, stuff that doesn't have incredible stamina requirements because of the 60% increased stamina that runaways consume. And if you ever get rushed, you're probably dead anyway, so you do not worry about the 9% chance that you will be rushed. In the very, very, very long track, she's going to struggle against end closers, but then again, you do have Vanguard Spirit as a runaway, so you can really stretch out the pack in those ones. She has her uses. If you're an Oshi player, you can build her as an ace, although it is one of the more difficult characters to do so. Now, I try to go and end these videos with some sort of joke or pun, but it's kind of difficult to find one for this character besides the hardly know her joke. So instead, let's just do an observation. If you look really close at her hair, you can see it outlines the number 5. Being, a numbers person I noticed this pretty quickly. And if you look here, one of her friends, Helios, has 6 fingers coming up. So really, all these characters and these friends are doing is they're trying to count. So you got 5, and then you got 6,